Well, let me just start with this. Just to be fair, we gave the DOJ some notice. We said Glenn has addressed criticism the DOJ has fallen short of MAGA's expectations for justice over the past year. Glenn wants to give the DOJ the benefit of the doubt and present his audience with reasons why there might be a backlog. One of those reasons being the amount of district attorneys. It's actually, I think, federal investigators that Democratic senators are holding up in confirmation. You have the number estimate of federal prosecutors that are being held up by Democrats. Deadline is 8 a.m., blah, blah, blah. We have not received anything, and I say that because it's not unusual for us not to get a response from the DOJ. For instance, we have yet to receive anything from our FOIA on the Jeffrey Epstein case. I don't know if I've ever mentioned this, but when I saw what was happening with the Epstein case, I noticed there seemed to be a real tiff between Dan Bongino and Pam Bondi. And so I know there had to be things that were being exchanged back and forth. And that would help us get to what really happened. So we requested copies, including, this is actually from the FOIA that we put out July 11th, copies of all records, including but not limited to emails, memorandums, notes, text messages, correspondence, meeting minutes, call logs, or any other communications sent or received by Dan Bongino that mention, discuss, or relate to any of the following topics: the Epstein files, Jeffrey Epstein's client list, any documents, investigations, or releases related to Jeffrey Epstein's activities, associate, or estate; Pam Bondi, the Attorney General, DOJ, Kash Patel. This includes communication where these topics are discussed in combination. Bongino's references to the Epstein files in context of Bondi or Patel, or individually. The search should include any electronic or paper records in Bongino's custody, as well as those involving him as the sender, recipient, or CC/BCC participant. The time period of this request is from November 5th, 2024 until present day, July 11th, 2025. Requesting these records in the public interest as they pertain to high-profile promises made by Bongino, Bondi, and Patel regarding transparency on Epstein-related matters, which have been widely discussed in the media and public forums. Disclosure would contribute to public understanding of government operations, accountability, and potential conflicts of interest involving senior officials. I am not seeking these records for commercial purposes. I request a waiver of all fees associated, blah, 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 blah. Crickets. We have not, it is my right as a journalist to request with a FOIA request. The government is supposed to respond quickly to a FOIA request. Usually they do. When they don't respond quickly to a FOIA request, it sometimes can be dragged out for a very long time because the government doesn't want to do it. And so they'll come up with all kinds of excuses. I would think that a DOJ that wants to let the American people know what's going on would have honored that FOIA request. So let me first make a case. I want to make two sides of this case. And the one I believe is that Pam Bondi needs to be replaced right now. But I want to make a case that, wait a minute, there might be some things we don't understand. So you can make your own decision. And no straw man arguments, I'll give you both sides of this. First, let me make a case for accountability and action and why patience at some point can become complicity. A republic doesn't die only from chaos. It dies from tolerance of the intolerable. There comes a point when process stops being prudence and becomes protection. And that's what I'm concerned about, that we are in this place where protection is happening. And history is merciless on this question of where this line is. The Roman Senate, they didn't fall just because they lacked laws. They weren't enforcing it. The laws were enforced selectively. Politicians, the Senate, everybody delayed. And so there was no justice, and the people noticed that. And that's when people stopped believing in the republic. So faith collapses before an empire or a country does. Same thing over and over throughout history. I don't need to bore you with all of the details. But this is the moment that we're living in right now, when small offenders are jailed swiftly. When the IRS will hire 85,000 agents to go over your records, but nobody will talk about Hunter Biden. No one will talk about the Clintons. No one will talk about anybody in power. Those just get swept away. When process crimes are aggressively pursued, when whistleblowers are crushed, which they have been, but sprawling, massive, well-documented corruption in government produces years of nothing but hearings and no results on those hearings, okay? When that happens, the public starts to, and it's not irrational to do it, it's not hysterical to do it, but people see this pattern and go, the whole system is rigged. And that's the end of a republic. And that's why Pam Bondi needs to answer or be replaced. We must have the information that the American people can trust. So let me just tell you, these are the things that just drive me out of my mind, that Pam Bondi needs to answer for and be replaced for. First, the Epstein case. That's the dumbest thing I've ever seen. I've never seen anybody handle anything. Well, no, I take that back. Joe Biden, he handled his entire administration the way Pam Bondi has handled the Epstein case. It is honestly like she's like, I got all the information on my desk right here. What am I doing here? I mean, it was almost that bad. I got all the information, and you're going to see it tomorrow. It sat right here on my desk, and then nothing. Why did you say that, Pam? You have to tell the American people because you were bluffing, because you hadn't done your homework, because you were looking for press that night. Why would you say that and then have nothing? And then the next day say, well, I don't have it because the FBI in New York, they won't release it. They're holding the documents. And then not send FBI to the FBI office and arrest those people that would not turn over the records that you said they were holding. Why didn't that happen? I personally think it was just another lie or gaffe from you. You were incompetent and not ready to deal with it, and you opened your mouth. That's what I think happened. And that's the kindest I can get. So, the Jeffrey Epstein thing. Complete bungling of it. The lack of criminal prosecution for James Comey, for Clapper, for the lying under oath on so many things, but let's just say Russiagate. The collusion with the press and the use of the release of secret information to the press. We know it. We have the memos. We've seen the memos. Why hasn't anybody been charged? Why haven't these two been charged? Ricky, can you tell me, have they even lost their national security clearances?
Oh, I don't think they have, but I'll double check that while you're going off.
Yeah,
yes.
Just check. Yeah, okay. Next, the lack of criminal prosecution against Adam Schiff or the New York Attorney General Letitia James or anyone else that tried to weaponize the justice system against political opponents. Most prominently, that would be Trump. Where is any case on that? And you know what? If you don't have a case, say you don't have a case. But don't just leave it hanging out there. Lack of arrests for various Democratic scandals, including the Russia collusion hoax. Where's that? The Mar-a-Lago raid? I mean, we keep finding out it's worse and worse and worse, and nothing happens. How about the 2020 election fraud? That scandal. At least the lack of investigations into and answers on whether there was fraud. Nothing? You got nothing. A year in, you got nothing. Okay. How about the lack of action regarding Doge's fraud findings? A lot of fraud there. Who went to jail? Who are you even considering putting in jail? Do you know how much money has been stolen from the American people, and it appears our DOJ doesn't give a flying crap? You can't have a country run like this. You can't. And Pam, that's your responsibility. That's your responsibility. Where are all the arrests and investigations into all the state and federal government that participated in the Somali fraud? I know you're going and you're getting the Somalis. You got some Russians, and I congratulate you on that. But I want to see the people that were involved at the airport. I want to see the bankers that knew. I want to see the people that turned a blind eye. I want to see people who actually planned it. Where is that? I know you're only a year into it. How long do we have to wait here? How about the failure to drain the swamp on the deep state actors working against the American people and their elected officials? Do we have anything on that? Anything. Anything. The failure to prosecute anyone involved in the Biden-era weaponization of government. Dare I even say COVID? The Unjust Face Act arrests? Everything the Twitter files exposed about what the government was doing? Where is a single arrest? Where and when this? How about Biden's auto pen scandal? Where the hell's that? How about this? How about the lies that happened under oath by the Capitol Police, proven to be lies by videotape about January 6th? January 6th. What about the pipe bomber? Definitely not that guy. We got this guy over here. What about the FBI lying about the number of agents that were actually there at January 6th? We're going to do anything about that? Here's one of my favorites. This is a recent hit. The lack of going after the Clintons for non-Epstein related reasons, like Gazprom and Uranium One. We got that one dead to rights. Benghazi, dead to rights. Hillary's email server, dead to rights. Claims of fraud in Haiti with the Clinton Initiative, dead to rights. Anything the Clinton Foundation has touched, I'm pretty sure you can find something. And what happens? You don't do anything, so Congress has a little show trial to enrage the left and the right based on a fishing expedition that you're not going to get anything from, except you're going to get people riled up on teams. That's not helpful to the Republic. How about the lack of apparent investigations into George Soros and all of his foundations? I know you're just starting that. Can we get an update at all? Why does this man have so much influence in our politics? Everyone knows. And there's zero pushback from anybody in power. I mean, you could go back to the Ukraine color revolution of 2014, which of course led them to try to impeach Trump, but, the lack of investigations in COVID is astounding. No one went to, you know how many people died? Because you all colluded. You colluded. You knew this was untested. You knew it had dangers. You didn't tell us about it. Instead, you said, you have to take it. Nobody goes to jail for that. No one. No one pays a price. How many people in this world, let alone this country, died because of that? And by the way, what about buddying up with China and being partially responsible for COVID? Is anybody going to pay a price for that, or do we just not care? Because it's science. Thank you for thinking for yourself and